If I'd known he was so good, I would have done it myself.
This is my favourite roast beef, although I did have a few accidents whilst making it, but it's all good.
All right, we have lots more awards to come, but are you guys ready to get a glimpse of what's next? That's right, we are far from done.
Hello. Hi, Dina.
Oh, hi, Dina.
Hey. So, what brings you here tonight?
Cheese.
I loved working on such massive games, but I actually had a sense of guilt. We're less than 20 years away from climate collapse.
If you want to see everything State Farm is doing in gaming, head to their website right now at statefarm.com/gaming, because like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Now, when we created the TGA in 2014, I wanted to celebrate the people who devote their lives to entertaining and sometimes comforting or affecting us through video games.
Let's hear it for the 10th anniversary of the Game Awards. But until then, enough.
Ah, December. A time of family reunions, belly stuffing and gift giving for normies. And a very special time for us degenerates, where we get a few days off from society to enjoy our favorite pastime.
Będę grał w grę.
A w jaką?
Tomb Raider.
Okej, dziękuję bardzo.
To see everyone's arbitrary best and worst games of the year lists, and an award show that everyone hates but still watches, hosted by our very own Dorito Pope Jeff II and his co-host Sydney, Australia. I have a confession to make before we go any further. Just like with other shows of that caliber like Oscars, the Emmys, the Tonys, the Globes, the Golden Dicks, I have zero interest in watching them, as it's just industry leaders sucking off other industry leaders. So, to come clean, these are the first game awards I've watched from start to finish. That means I can really tell you how it stacks against the previous ones, but clocking at just shy of 4 hours though, it seems to be in line with the standard, and the standard is way too fucking long. That being said, we had some interesting trailers and premieres and some, let's say, interesting awards? Let's face it, the only real category that's worth anything is the Player Voice Awards, this year relegated to astonishing 31 seconds, a big improvement over the last year's 22. It certainly feels like a step in the right direction in an otherwise predictable show that's here to remind us all that the unwavering nonsense of big game corporations is still holding on strong and steady. So here I am, with my little grifter shovel, to poke fun at the fucking thing. I'll be going over the ceremony, the awards and the trailers. If only a particular section piques your interest, I will leave the timestamps on the screen for your convenience now. And if you're just here to listen to me rant about the 2 trailers everybody's talking about, here are the timestamps for that. So, without further ado, boys and girls, here is my autistic look at the Game Awards.
Uncle George.
I don't know exactly from where one should start critiquing such a show, so let me begin with the hosts. Jeff, like always, looked like $1 million. His shoes look better than my wife, and his suit and haircut probably costed more than my entire house. On the other side of the aisle, Sydney, Florida looked charming as always, doing her best to make the pre-show a little bit more awkward for us to enjoy.
Well then, enough. I'm kidding.
And reminding us that no matter what we do and what we watch, like a good neighbor, there's always Jake from State Farm ready to steal our takeaway. The main show itself was a mix of the usual things you might expect from an event like this. There was a lot of words said that didn't mean a thing.
At the Game Awards, our aspiration is to create moments that define our medium and remind us all why we became fans in the first place.
A lot of cringe moments like Harrison Ford, who looked like he was snatched away from his afternoon tea in front of the fireplace and shoved onto the stage in front of a sellout crowd to speak about stuff no one bothered to brief him on beforehand.
And now, we're here to present the award for Best Performance.
That or the guy had a few too many margaritas on the way to the show. There was the arbitrary bingo of all shows, a TikTok ad, a Fortnite ad, a Hideo Kojima, an Amazon ad, an AI game trailer, and a gaming laptop ad. And I hope this one does not melt like a 13th gen i9's Patrick. Next, the attempted speech was hopelessly failed to address the reasons and the consequences of the massive layoffs currently happening across the gaming industry. More on that later.
Games were nothing without the people behind them. Now, the sad reality is that over the past few years, the gaming industry has suffered significant and unprecedented industry-wide layoffs. Those affect the games we get to play and, even more importantly, the people who make the games we love. We can debate and certainly disagree with the reasons why, and honestly, as a show, we kind of struggle with how to address these topics in a constructive way.
Really, mate? Okay, actually, no. Let's address it now. Around the halfway mark, a sad effort was made to try and pander by introducing the
Game Changer,
which basically boiled down to a guy making an Excel spreadsheet for people fired from the gaming industry. I mean, the concept on paper is indeed very noble, Amir, but if those are the people that are being laid off, then I think the gaming industry as a whole is entering its healing phase. Now, don't get me wrong, the reins of those companies are held by people who couldn't give the smallest of fucks about the employees working for them, good or bad, or your little Excel spreadsheet to begin with, mate. There seem to be only two ways forward in the model AAA industry: be told to make a woke game that ultimately does not sell, get laid off as a result of cost cutting, or make a good game that sells millions and is universally liked, get laid off due to corporate restructuring efforts aimed at addressing the current market conditions. So no, Jeff, it's not hard to address it, it's actually pretty easy and right there in plain sight for everyone to see. It's just the fact that you can't talk about it anymore in fear of not getting the prime access your show requires to exist.
Please join me in welcoming a man who has the well-being of the game developer community in his heart.
I mean, the hubris on display of people responsible for said layoffs sitting comfortably and clapping away while you present that meaningless award just proves the point. And parading a dude that made that one Excel you liked will not solve any of this, as the rod spreads from both the roots and the crown at the same time.
Never took you for a poet.
Oh, but I am one.
The AAA is in a constant state of trying to outfuck itself, forcing its politics and views that are not appealing to its target audience, and then, in a predictable corporate fashion, discarding the people who worked on it, or the people working on it being so narrow-minded that they believe that cramming in views on how they think the world should look and function like, attacking any valid criticism, then ultimately blaming everyone but themselves once the inevitable collapse happens, is a valid strategy to get their worldview across. Whatever it may be, there is still a lot of work to be done to salvage the situation, and although lending support to people who genuinely need it is commendable, I don't think it's the game changer you want us to believe it to be.
Thank you so much. No, you're breathtaking.
Oh, no. I think Sven summarized it best when he said,
"It's stupidly simple, but somehow it keeps on getting lost." Studio made their game because they wanted to make a game that they wanted to play themselves. They created it because it hadn't been created before. They didn't make it to increase market share. They didn't make it to serve as a brand. They didn't have to meet arbitrary sales targets or fear being laid off if they didn't meet those targets. And furthermore, the people in charge forbade them from cramming the game with anything whose only purpose was to increase revenue and didn't serve the game design. They didn't treat their developers like numbers on a spreadsheet. They didn't treat their players as users to exploit. And they didn't make decisions they knew were short-sighted and function of a bonus or politics. They knew that if you put the game and the team first, the revenue will follow. They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun. They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games. It's really that simple, said the Oracle.
On the more positive note, there was also a Snoop Dogg concert. Why? Look, I love the classic D.O.G., but it felt a little bit out of place here. Fortunately, he only played 2 songs, one from his newest album, and a clean version of one of his absolute classics titled Gin and Juice. Obviously, I cannot play any of the songs because I would get demonetized, despite the fact I'm not even monetized yet, so let me introduce a beat from our very own DJ Bubble. On the other hand, however, it was absolutely hilarious to watch clueless cardboard cutouts trying to fake their enjoyment and deep appreciation of rap music cut in glorious 4K. Thanks for that, Mr. Snoop. Oh, and by the way, didn't you mention something about a video game project?
We intend to create a hip-hop gaming universe that could stand beside some of these nominees tonight.
I wish he was talking about Def Jam Fight for New York too, but let's face it, it's just gonna be an online crypto game, isn't it? To top it all off, somebody let this guy onto the stage.
Fuck shit up without fucking up.
More on him during the trailer section, and even good old Randy Pitchford made an appearance, promoting yet another main entry in his stale franchise that has definitely overstayed its welcome. By the way, how you doing, mate? Found that USB stick yet? The final thing I want to touch on is...
How long's this bozo gonna go on?
Well, that's what I've been asking for the last 10 years.
the inclusion of Statler and Wardrough. Which would be pretty cringe if not for the fact that they were right on point with all the comments.
Yeah, please wrap it up.
Yeah, speaking of a lot of people, why isn't this theater full, huh?
Yeah, we heard you always sell out.
Oh, got him!
I don't know, Jeff, if it was your idea, born of self-reflection, or someone else came up with it, but if it was someone else, give that person a bonus. Okay, that about wraps it up for the ceremony. Now, on to the... As mentioned previously, the only category on this entire show I had any interest in was the 31-second player voice award. Rest was just as trustworthy as
Yves Guillemot,
stating that Ubisoft is an entertainment-first company and it's not pushing any specific... At least we can have some fun looking at a few of the categories. Plus, it will be fun to see the disparity between the winners here and the player voted awards elsewhere on the internet.
Wow, oh my god.
So, without further ado, we kick off with the Fighting Game Award. And you knew as well as I did, Tekken 8 would have been the winner from the very start. There's just way too much hype around the Tekken title for it to not win an award. Next up is the all-important VR, AR... Holy shit, there's a Batman VR game? Oh yes, I am all over that shit. Finally I can undust my headset. Oh. Oh. It's for Zucker goggles only. That would mean that in order to play a 10-hour game, I would need to give old Mark $500. And my name. And surname. And address. And phone number. And medical history. And revenue. And tax filings. And dick size. And blood type. And all the data of my friends just so he can sell it back to Jake from State Farm and call me a dumb fuck? Nah, cheers Mark, mate. Shove that plastic tat up your ass and see if you can find the metaverse. Oh, a quick correction from Uncle from the future. It seems Facebook account is no longer required and hasn't been since August 2022. But still, fuck you, Mark. Now comes the categories that I really have nothing to say about except for the fact they're presented by Old Spice.
Old Spice shaving gel!
A fragrance decidedly invented to make all guys just that little bit more off-putting, and I should know, cause I used to drink it. I am aware of all of these FPS games, but I haven't played them long enough to have any valuable opinion. My competitive shooting career started and ended around Quake 3 Arena and Counter-Strike 1.6. As for the rest, I couldn't tell you, I'm really too dumb to play Dota and LoL, so instead I play StarCraft 2. Consequently, I have no idea who any of those people are, but I can safely say that they're a lot of things, but definitely not athletes. Same goes for the teams, although I know Team Liquid from StarCraft. I think Team Liquid is like a Red Bull of gaming world. They have a team for every competitive game, so there's no surprise here. They probably have a team for competitive Microsoft Solitaire and Minesweeper. Next up are Games for Impact, whatever that means. I only played Indica and Hellblade 2, and I can tell you, there was little to no impact to be found there. Indica had an amazing and oppressive atmosphere, and the story had an excellent hook, but it just fizzled out before it started. It took me all about 5 hours to beat the game. Twice. Now, I have no problem with short games, but this one felt way too brief for the story it wanted to tell. Senua, however, was the complete opposite. It looked absolutely gorgeous, but dragged like a fentanyl addict trying to finish a marathon.
Hey, that's harsh!
Also, not really asked for this. The first game was a nicely contained story with a good character arc that did not need to be continued. And the sequel kinda sorta knew that too, so story-wise it fumbled and delivered nothing new. That being said, it was stunning to see the raw beauty of Iceland these guys created, and it's worth to boot up if you have Game Pass, just to take a walk if nothing else. And the winner was...
Never!
Never heard of it. Thank you, YouTube chat. Next up is Innovation and Accessibility, two words that are fighting with diversity and inclusion for the title of the most overused and bastardized pair of corporate buzzwords. A category created so that the gaming media can have a chance to show off their failing darlings in and boast about it later in the meaningless articles. I mean, That was the only category Veilguard and Outlaws had any hopes of being featured in. And despite Prince of Persia deservedly winning, now they can call Dragon Age Veilguard a game nominated at the Game Awards. Fuck off.
Oh, come on!
Next is a family game. I can't be asked that. It's probably Astro, but anyway, you know what? I don't care about most of the categories, so let's make it short and sweet and look at the big ones. Otherwise, we'll be stuck here for hours.
Yeah, please wrap it up.
We were quite spoiled this year, I must say, but for me, best action game would have always been 40k against Black Myth Wukong, and my money was on Space Marine 2, especially given the fact that I am what you could call a entry-level 40k enthusiast. I also read a book once and have one unassembled and unpainted Space Marine figurine. In the end, it was Black Myth Wukong who got the award. A little bit surprising, especially given the smear campaign that the game faced from the likes of IGN, but let's not talk about it, right guys? Okay, next big one would be the most anticipated game, right? And all of them, except for Ghost of Yotei, being highly anticipated, but come on, I don't even have to name the nominees, the answer will always be GTA 6. Next up is the best action adventure, and it has to be Silent Hill. Astrobot? Really? Well, okay then, I guess. Best RPG. That's gonna be a little bit of a painful category for me. I have all these games in my library bar Rebirth, which will be there next year, but I didn't really have time to go through any of them. So, Metaphor Fantasia won the award, and I was planning to waste my Christmas on Dragon's Dogma 2, but should I try Metaphor Fantasia instead? Let me know. Next up, best annual slop from EA and Take-Two, for which I could not give a flying fuck even if it landed in my backyard in a flying sombrero and set itself on fire. Next is the best team strategy. Kumitsugami was a wonderful little game, but it was more of a strategy light. If it was me, my money would be on Manor Lords. Yeah, it's more broken than an Amazon warehouse worker after a pre-Christmas double shift, but when it works, it's quite a joy to play, and it looks like it's getting better and better. Of course, there's some bias here, since this game is from my neck of the woods, but the same can be said about Frostpunk 2, and that game would have been the last choice on that list for me. Not only can it not stand to its predecessor on, well, frankly, any level, it's arguably not that good of a game. It was a serviceable city builder, I guess, but it came nowhere close to the atmosphere and a sense of personal engagement Frostpunk 1 delivered, in my humble opinion. Best independent game for me was a close call between Balatro and Animal Well, but since I sunk hundreds of hours into Balatro, I would have to go with that. Sucks if you don't like card games though. Next is the Player's Voice Award, and as previously advertised, the only one I was really interested in. And they've put Genshin Impact in there again, and you can see even Jeff had to hold off a lol when saying it. But to no one's surprise, I think we can all agree the Monkey Game was an easy winner here. And finally, the moment everyone in the audience and in front of their computers were waiting for, the game of the... Oh, it's Astrobot. It's Astrobot. Really? Okay, can somebody seriously tell me, does Astrobot deserve to be on the list of games of the year? I'm genuinely interested. I mean, I don't own a PS5 because there's only one game I would be interested in playing on, and that's Gran Turismo. Anything else I can get on PC.
PS5!
Oh my god!
Oh my god, I wanted a PC! I want a PC, I don't like this!
So, should I run to the nearest shop for a PS5 Pro to enjoy this masterpiece? I am a little bit confused. For someone who watched a bit of the gameplay, it looks like a generic action platformer that mimics what Nintendo has been doing for decades. If this was your game of the year, please let me know why. I'm genuinely interested. For my money, I thought it would be either Black Myth Wukong or Final Fantasy, but it just shows what I know in the end. Oh, and by the way, special mention to this guy, he was the real master of blowing. During the whole presentation, his instruments got progressively smaller, and yet he was getting louder and louder. I could think of many scenarios in life where... actually, never mind. We've been here long enough already, let's go on to the trailers, and I promise I will try to keep it brief this time. The trailers this year were, well, surprisingly not bad. We got a number of interesting announcements that made even a cynical fuck like me excited. The first one was Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and I was all for it. Being a fan of both the NES classics as well as the Sigma series, I was happy to see a fresh installment going back to the roots of the series. The graphics, the animation, the sound and music, and the combat all look fantastic. Looks like a classic Ninja Gaiden, but much more crisp and responsive movement. Hope it'll be difficult like the other titles in the series, and I can't wait to play this, to be honest. The same goes for Turok Origins, another little gem from the past. We didn't have a mainline entry since 2008, I believe, and after that game I can't really fault anybody for not rushing to continue the series. What it did show us, however, is that there is absolutely a passionate audience for games themed around dinosaurs, and if Saber can pull it off with Origins, they will be one happy company at the end of the day. One thing worth mentioning, however, is the switch from first person to third person, which I honestly feel mixed about. We'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Another absolute banger was Onimusha, and shit, Capcom can't just stop winning, it seems. Their track record of reviving old IPs has been stellar, and I have full confidence it will be more of the same with Onimusha. If the remakes of early RE games are anything to go by, we are in for something special here. But damn, that's not even the end of the announcements coming from them. It seems they are also keen on reviving Okami, which was one of my favorite games on the PS2. Ah, fuck, that takes me back. You know how in the past you'd buy everything with a Blizzard logo attached to it? You knew it would be a smash hit even if it was outside the games you'd usually play. And although these times are long gone and Blizzard is just a soaking, ripped and forgotten sex toy rotting away in Bobby's dungeon, it's good to see companies like Capcom stepping up and taking the spotlight. I mean, you can't go wrong with a Capcom game nowadays. And yeah, Resident Evil 3 remake got a lot of flack, but it was not half bad of a game, to be honest. People just expected, and rightfully so I might add, much more after playing through Resident Evil 2 remake. Lastly, the trailer for the Unknown game from the creators of Ico and Shadow of the Colossus kicked fucking ass. Not much is known at the moment, there's not even a working title, but looks like the tides are turning and now we are the Colossus fighting against a swarm of something. Whatever it may be, it looks fucking amazing and I can't wait to play it. This one I'll be monitoring quite closely. There's also a few interesting trailers like the first Berserker and Mafia Old Country, but they didn't show much in terms of gameplay, so it's a wait and see for me. As you know, this industry taught us well not to fucking believe any pre-rendered bullshit. On the subject of trust, also the Game of Thrones looked promising, but again, I don't trust WB games, so I need to see more first. That being said, it would be awesome to have a good game in this universe for a change. Next on this list would be Long Dark 2. I was the fan of the original, being a gritty survival game set in the outskirts of Edmonton, Canada, where a normal day consists of trying to not freeze to death and fighting off wolves.
Is he gonna kill me? He's gonna kill me. He's gonna kill me. Oh, I knew.
The sequel's graphics look stunning while still retaining their distinct visual style, and the trailer promises another interesting premise. So interesting was that trailer actually that it convinced me to replay Long Dark 1. I'm really looking forward to what they have planned for the sequel. Finally, there's everybody's favorite, Jesse Pinkman.
Where's my money, bitch?
In Dispatch, which gameplay-wise gives me the vibes of This Is the Police, just with a more wacky story, cutscenes, and production value, I think. Cautiously optimistic about this one, to be honest. If they can refrain from completely butchering the characters, it might be a decent title. There was also a few trailers that I know people really love, but I couldn't really give a fuck, and those would be Slay the Spire 2. And I can't tell you why. I love deck builders just as much as I like roguelites, but I don't like Slay the Spire. You explain this to me because I can't. Killing Floor 3. Nothing wrong with a co-op zombie shooting action, but I had this one mate who would stalk me online every weekend for years checking if I'm free to play Killing Floor 2.
Hey Joe, you wanna play the zombie game?
No, I don't want to fucking play another goddamn zombie game!
After having to go invisible for weekends on end to avoid playing after the first few years, I am still Killing Floored out. Nevertheless, I'm not saying I won't at least check it out, and I've probably cursed my future weekends with that statement. Den of Wolves. A game that is bravely being created in a world where we have both Cyberpunk and Payday. But hey, if they can manage a smooth release before they fix Payday 3, it just might get a good player base, who knows. Next up, we can circle back to this guy and...
No, listen. This time, it's some next level shit, I'm telling you. I mean, no, what we're gonna show you is gonna be amazing. I know I sound cocky, but it's really hard not to be cocky when you have a game like this.
Look mate, I love the enthusiasm, but you come up here and basically show us the same exact game you did now what, 4 times? Yeah, they're all decent and a gimmick of a co-op adventure is cool, but you can only dress it up so many times. I mean, good luck with this game, I hope it will be cool, and I sincerely hope you don't go the David Cage's way of making the same game over and over again with just a different coat of paint. Okay, to close this list off, I will say Outer Worlds 2.
Somebody shoot that monkey!
I know, the first installment is a beloved darling for many RPG fans, but I really dislike the general feel and aesthetic of the game. From the RPG side, it was an average story packaged with average quests, with standout characters few and far between for my taste, and the rest was just a short, mediocre shooter with clunky mechanics and sort of a boring locations. I can't recall the name now, but one YouTuber called it aggressively average, with which I am inclined to agree. With all that combined, the announcement of a sequel did little for me, but hey, if you loved it, then all power to you, I hope you enjoy. There were of course trailers for stuff that is already out and tanking harder than Keir Starmer's popularity ratings. And yes, I am looking at you, Dragon Age Veilguard and Star Wars Outlaws. And of course, I can't forget about Indiana Jones and the Circle of Something, which would have been a video on my channel, but unfortunately... I think it might be my lovely processor acting up again, but your guess is as good as mine. Finally, we arrive at the category I like to call the HTF trailers. The how the fuck trailers, if you will. For example, how the fuck did One Move Away make it to the Game Awards? I'll tell you what, I've moved around 10 to 15 times in my life, and I can tell you that the thing I've looked forward to the least each time was packing shit up and stuffing it into the car. Consequently, the second least thing I looked forward to was unpacking it again. So what compels you to believe I wanna do that in a video game as well? Next on the shit list has to be Catley, the blatantly AI generated slob that is the fuel of nightmares. I mean, look at it. Oh, how the fuck did it make the cut to the Game Awards is truly beyond me. I mean, what even is this? I'd rather not speculate, unless it's a horror game. I can see this work as a self-aware, on-the-nose, disturbing horror experience, but I don't think that's what they're aiming for here. Speaking of horror, Tales of the Shire. Are we really still trying to make a thing out of this? Listen lady, I'm sure you can grab some farm sim fans and a few children, but if you're banking on the Lord of the Rings fanbase to rush and buy your game, I think you might be a little bit too optimistic. Plus, for me personally, it really does look like a shit game. Now that I've probably lost half of my subscribers, I want to touch on the last 2 big announcements that seem to have people really talking. Correction, I mean 1 big announcement and Intergalactic to be more specific. So, The Witcher 4. Let's start with a bit of a background, shall we? I've been a Witcher fan since long before it became mainstream. I've read the books, seen the films, all of them. Played all the games, did not watch any of the Netflix colorful adaptations, so you can easily say I'm a bit of a fan. So, what did I think about the Witcher trailer? Well, it depends.
Enough from the clown!
On a surface level, it was a good cinematic introduction to the adventures of Ciri the Witcher? What? She is a Witcher mage hybrid now? It isn't possible, right? Okay, so let's say that during this encounter she's not drinking a witch's potion, which would probably kill or at least incapacitate her, old blood or no. Let's say that, like any self-respecting Pole, she starts the fight by taking a solid swirl from a bottle of vodka. Actually, her having to have a stiff one even during combat would neatly explain the changes to her face and voice. If that would be the case, we would be looking at a roughly 40-something-year-old alcoholic fighting with her internal demons of sorrow and regret. And why is that, you may ask? Well, because canonically, women can't be witches. They've tried, mind you, but none of them ever survived the trials. On top of that, Ciri was already trained in the sword fighting as a child by the witches. She was also taught to control her powers by Yennefer, and even though she found varying levels of success in the arcane arts, she is still basically a walking walking god amongst men. So why would she even consider going through the trials of grass at her age? Why would she care about doing the work of the Witcher? How far into the future is this story set anyway? See, those are all quite interesting questions, and in a bubble this would make a very intriguing first trailer indeed. However, in the current climate I understand why people are skeptical, as this trailer has the telltale signs of a disaster in the making. And thus, here comes my "it depends" answer. I believe, or I'd like to believe, there's an internal struggle in CDPR, creative versus corporate. I'm not saying this is the case, I'm completely pulling this hypothesis out of my ass, mind you.
What are you saying? What are you saying? What is he saying?
That being said, if the creatives gets full control, we might be in for a really cool story, explaining everything neatly, like maybe Ciri becoming a Witcher as a sacrifice of some kind. I mean, this is The Witcher 4, not Tales from the Witcher spin-off, and the signs that Ciri would take over have been there for years for any Witcher fan to see. It's just quite interesting, if not a bit weird, to see that she gets to continue the saga as a main entry character. At least it would be in a bubble, since if you look at it from this perspective, we should have nothing to worry about from CDPR story-wise. Despite their recent shenanigans and corporate dick spinning, they have always delivered compelling narratives, sacrificing nothing and telling the stories exactly like they wanted them to be told from the creative perspective. On the corporate side, however, it came out that Andrzej Sapkowski was not consulted for the 4th installment, and that the creative top has been replaced by a more Western and entitled enlightened individuals, which means Ciri, instead of an interesting character, might as well become a vessel for gay women empowerment that can do no wrong and
becoming the leader she knows she can be.
Opening her new Witcher school where everybody's welcome and valued, even cripples can become little Witcher sidekicks, and those who fail the trials don't die but instead are given a participation trophy, where female Witchers, which are better and wiser in every way to their male counterparts, can take period breaks when fighting monsters if they even had time to fight them in between the constant war with the patriarchy. See, the corporate CDPR has already shown that they have no problem openly lying to people, like with Cyberpunk when they said on multiple occasions that it will be released when it's ready, and then minimizing the exposure to basically trick people into buying a very early beta. After the backlash, just put a corporate apology template number 1 on Twitter and continue developing the game for the next few years. Release an expansion and a couple of patches that let you change the color of your car, and suddenly it's all good and it's the best game ever. Right guys? During all of that, the Twitter account spews nonsense of the highest order. They would not pass any occasion to pander with some bullshit, and IGN has been pumping out articles about the trailer daily, which is never a good sign. If those two, I mean the creative and the corporate side, stay separate, we might have another special title from CDPR. If by this point they are deeply intertwined, however, especially with the influence of the American studio, CDPR will join the happy list of inclusive corporations, scraping the mud from the bottom of the lake Ubisoft went to die in. I say wait and see. If it's really a disaster in making, there's going to be people who won't be able to resist the temptation of inserting their politics as early as the second trailer. If that's the case, shorting CDPR stock before releasing might be a good option. This is not financial advice, and I am in no way, shape or form a financial advisor. Also, there is no such thing as video game shortage, so please, if you feel like me, let your opinions be heard by no pre-ordering. And even if you're already completely sold by the first trailer, there's never a good reason to pre-order anything. If you want my personal opinion, I think it will be a mix of both good stories and progressive messaging. The main plot will be interesting, but there will be enough nonsense put in to regularly remind you of the importance of modern talking points. Think of a line where on one extreme we have Veilguard and on the other we have Stellar Braid. I think Witcher 4 will fall somewhere in the vicinity of Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2. And Peter, if I am completely wrong here, I will gladly apologize and enjoy the game you've produced. Prove me wrong. Is right, because I have to talk about this fucking thing, and I'm the worst person for the job since I really despise Neil Druckmann as a writer. Now, I know the guy was always there at Naughty Dog, working on some of the games I consider to be epic. Druckmann can be a serviceable writer, as long as he has someone more talented working alongside him, being able to write a coherent narrative and dial back on his, ideas. And Neil has been riding along this wave of critical acclaim for other people's achievements, and like a dog's turd sticking to a sole of a shoe, he made it all the way to the top of the company.
Very privileged position to be in. I never take that for granted.
Unfortunately, as his influence rose, the talent responsible for those great games started to erode. Very interesting indeed. When there is no one around to assist him in his writing endeavors, Neil likes to flip out his circumcised cock and start banging it against the keyboard in hopes of creating an interesting story. The fruits of such labor can be things like The Last of Us Part 2. I, like many others, absolutely loved the first one, so I was willing to go in with an open mind. And although I felt the same disbelief as many other people during the golf scene, I decided to press on. What I got in exchange for my dedication was an insufferable revenge story full of conveniences and lucky coincidences, which forced me to play as the antagonist for half of the fucking game so that I could be forced to sympathize and understand her perspective. That's top-notch writing right there, Neil. And in the end, you don't even get your revenge. Are you insane, mate? Did you at least read your story once before forcing people to make a game out of it? Can you even write, mate? Needless to say, after finishing The Last of Us Part 2, I felt there was only one place this game belonged in, and it was the fucking garbage bin. So yeah, excuse me for not frantically jumping up in excitement for a new game from Neil. And it is a shame really, because bar the awful main character, they nailed the atmosphere of the trailer, especially for old fucks like me who actually remember the 80s and 90s. Unfortunately, the few minutes we get to spend with Jordan Pickett-Smith makes me want to strangle her. Her? Them? It? Jean? I don't know, for the sake of it, we'll go with the least probable pronoun of she for now. However atmospheric that trailer may have been, you know there's Neil behind the curtains fucking the pool story into absolute oblivion.
Is that dick good? Yes, kid. How good is that dick? Oh!
So for my money, little Jordan here can take her Porsche spaceship with her Sony sound system and Adidas shoes and an off-screen Panasonic dildo with pager functionality so that she can ping it whenever it gets lost in her gaping asshole and ram herself into that fucking moon. After The Last of Us Part 2, I've promised myself I'd never buy another game from Neil, and Intergalactic looks like it can help me keep that promise. Great trailer, Neil, my man. Absolutely amazing.
Ah! Jesus Christ! Oh, oh, Todd, bro!
Damn, this came out longer and more autistic than I have anticipated. If you're still here, then wow, congratulations, man. And thank you ever so much, it means a world to me. I was hoping to get this out in time for Christmas, but there's one thing and then there's reality, and in reality I'm still fumbling with the editing and it takes me a lot of fucking time. So I won't wish you a Merry Christmas since you already know if it was merry or no. Instead, I wish all of you an amazing new year, hope everything goes to plan for you. And hey, I wish all of us more amazing games to enjoy, yeah? Take care for now and I'll see you next year.